Times is reporting that healthcare clinics across the country are shutting down their transgender care for minors. And it's not just in deep red states. Despite laws to protect transgender rights in states like California, 3 major healthcare providers in the state, including Children's Hospital Los Angeles, are shuttering their trans youth care centers. Many other major healthcare centers like UChicago Medicine and Children's National in D.C. have also stopped treatment for trans youth. And the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center took it a step further, saying its clinicians wouldn't provide care for anyone under the age of 19.
All of this is in response to the Trump administration's aggressive approach to thwarting transgender treatments for minors. The administration has threatened to pull federal funding at individual hospitals and subpoena providers for confidential patient information. Earlier this month, the DOJ did just that, sending more than 20 subpoenas to doctors and clinics that were involved in, quote, performing transgender medical procedures on children. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement, quote, medical professionals and organizations that mutilated children in the service of a warped ideology will be held accountable by this Department of Justice.
In response to Kaiser Permanente halting gender-affirming care for anyone under 19, California State Senator Scott Weiner said in a statement, quote, California law is clear. Health systems can't deny care to trans people, and this is a straight-up denial of care to youth who are under the care of a physician and whose parents have consented to the treatment. This is such like a nuanced issue that is, really uncomfortable for a lot of different people to discuss. And even for me, as somebody who is not a part of the community, I have sat in, and to be fully transparent, with a hair salon with a mom of a transgender woman and talk to her about it, because I really want some understanding. I can't be at the time in the news as a journalist and now providing analysis of something that I don't have a direct attachment to. It's almost like it being part of the Black community and saying, here's my experience. And then you and I talking about it and you're like, okay, I understand, but break it down for me, right, as a Black woman. And so this is the thing. Trans people have their own experience. And this mom said to me, let me tell you something. When you have a kid that's telling you that they want to start transitioning, and a lot of times it's not medically, it's through puberty blockers or anything like that.
Well, that's medically.
Well, I'm saying medically, like surgery-wise. Okay. It's not the surgically I meant. So when people start to say that, and it's between me and my kid telling me they're having suicidal thoughts, you're a mom now. So tell me, when that's the choice on the line, what would you choose? And so when you put it in that perspective as the mom of a 4-year-old, there's never a time where if her health was so, her state was so in disarray that she wanted to commit suicide because she felt so strongly that she needed to transition. I have never been in that situation to speak from that lens in an authoritative way. And so all these lawmakers, I think, need to spend more time understanding and with this community, rather than just dictating from a far place like Pam Bondi and saying, we're going to litigate and do all this stuff. Why don't you just spend time talking to families that are deeply impacted by this to try to understand more than the ideology even coming from Democrats who don't have family members in this. Go spend time with the community and the people that it's impacting so you can get some real awareness on what this means outside of just what it means on paper to you as a lawmaker.
Yeah, sadly, I think parents who have children who are struggling with gender dysphoria and these suicidal thoughts and mental health issues have been sold a bill of goods by medical providers. There's not a single shred of compelling evidence that suggests that going through puberty blockers, hormone treatments, or sex change surgical procedures helps to improve the mental health of children with gender dysphoria. In fact, 80 to 85% of them grow out of those feelings by the time they reach the age of 18. Both the Cass Review in the UK was actually the UK was doing a lot of these procedures before the US, which led to the implementation of the Cass Review, which looked at all of the available evidence in places across Europe to determine whether or not that this treatment was effective. And they found that it was not effective. They actually banned the prescription of puberty blockers and hormone therapies for minors outside of clinical trials. And in the US, Trump's HHS recently did a review, and I know that immediately sends red flags, right? Sure, they were looking for a certain conclusion because it was Trump's HHS that did this. They actually consulted with a group of independent scientists and doctors, and it was a majority liberal panel. There was a Washington Post op-ed a couple of months ago from one of the individuals on the panel who identifies as liberal, who was shocked at the fact that as they were going through the evidence, they weren't able to find anything that indicated that this was effective. And that was why they ended up releasing that review as well here in the United States. So I think there's a lot of medical providers, there's medical associations that were either falsely under the impression that this was the proper way to treat these children, or perhaps they viewed it as a moneymaker. But we've got a lot of people a lot of young people who are going down a path that is not proven to help their mental health. And I think a lot of them are going to find themselves years from now in a really, really dark place because of it.
I was reading the article when the New York Times covered this, and they were saying that looking at the Children's Hospital, specifically in Los Angeles, that we talked about, there's a community that's scrambling now to try to continue what they're deeming as essential care because this consultation was started already and planned out years in the making before they underwent some of this, like, let's say, hormone blockers or all these things, so puberty blockers. And so that is part of the problem, that now people have already started this. Now what? That's going to deteriorate mental health even more so than if somebody made a firm choice as a parent, which also, obviously, as a parent, that kid becomes an adult one day that may make a different choice that's different from a child's choice. And so obviously that's something that you want to give them the autonomy to make. And so I think that down the line, as a kid gets older, they'll be more firmer in their conviction, the same way that you and I are grown adults and can make more firm decisions than when we were 16 or 19.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point, is that they should be able to be a child, and they can't consent to these medical procedures, right? The parents are doing it on their behalf because they think it's what's best, because the doctors have told them things that are not based in scientific evidence and reality. And I think that they've really been between a rock and a hard place. I mean, for that mom, my heart breaks for her, because when you have a child who's suicidal, of course you don't know what to do. You're supposed to be able to trust your doctors. And the massive expansion of what the medical community refers to as gender-affirming care has unfortunately, I think, medicalized a lot of children who would be better off having expansive and cohesive mental health treatment until they're old enough to make the decision to permanently alter their body.
And to kind of finalize that story, because the mom actually kept telling her son that transitioned to a daughter no, and then finally at 26, obviously it's out of the mom's choice at that point. The kid made the choice, or the adult made the choice to transition with the procedure and everything. And the mom said to me that she was a happier person. And so if there's a conversation about, if this conversation was happening since the child was small and, like you argue, not able to make a full decision, and then decided this firm, concrete decision at 26 and is living a happier, fuller life, then from a mom to see that transition from suicidal to now living a full life is something to, a case study in itself, of showing an example of somebody who made a firm choice as an adult to continue care that they started when they were younger.
Yeah, as an adult, again, they're free to do that. I think the question is whether we want to see 13, 14, 15-year-olds getting double mastectomies, or penile implants, or some of the other procedures that happen, or puberty blockers that could lead to infertility, when they really can't grapple with the consequences of what that means for when they're trying to experience life later on.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep talking about this because it's one of those issues that unfortunately wasn't covered enough, and now it's covered with such political strife sometimes that the people that are closely affected to it probably feel overlooked, and like a lot of politicians are talking over their head as opposed to directly to them. So I think it might be the best to bring the people affected by this into the room, as opposed to the doctors and everyone else. Just bring the people to talk about experiences into the room as well.
Yeah, I mean, to a point, I think evidence matters too. Scientific evidence matters, and certainly if we're going to talk to people, we should talk to detransitioners as well, of which there's a growing community of them who feel like they've been completely ignored by the media and by the medical community.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, up next, Columbia University and the Trump administration have reached a deal after months of negotiations. Hear more on the deal next, including the multi-million-dollar payout. We'll be right back.